Hola clase, vamos a escribir en las mapas. So hopefully you downloaded a copy of these, and we're just going to fill in some extra information, including names of countries on some of the other maps. I'm going to suggest you make use of the text tool, and I would suggest using a color other than black, maybe blue, something of that nature, just so it stands out better. So, our first map, as you can see, is where it all starts. And we are in Europa, or in English, Europe. So, I'm going to type Europa, and I'm going to put that up here in the corner. That's our first region. And obviously, I'll tell you right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control C and Control V a bunch of times, but I'm just going to change the text so it stays blue. We're where it all starts, which is España. Repite, España. España. España is Spain's name for themselves. So you might want to write Spain just so you remember. Spain is the country where Spanish originates, and it is bordered by both Portugal on the left, which speaks Portuguese, and Francia at the top, which of course speaks French. Now, way down here off to the side, it's really further along the coast, but we don't have a lot of space for it. I do want you to put Las Islas Canarias, the Canary Islands. The Canary Islands are a small set of islands owned by Spain, and they also speak Spanish. They are off the coast of Africa, and actually, you can see it in this map here. These are the islands, but we don't have that much space here, so we're just going to make a note of them down here. And you might even take your little circle tool and make a couple little, you know, I make a couple little copy paste little islands there. Okay, good. So this is where it all starts. Is with Europa, Europe, and España, Spain, from which it all comes. Now we're going to move on to South America. And again, I'm just using copy paste here. It says South America at the top. In Spanish, Sud America. South America. Repite, Sud America. Another region. And there are 9 countries you need to be aware of that speak Spanish. Before we get started, I just want to address this real big one right here, the biggest one of them all. Brazil does not speak Spanish. It speaks Portuguese. Hopefully you knew that. If not, you do now. And then we have a whole bunch of others. So what we're going to do is I'm going to write these in here. And then I'm going to draw arrows as I go. Okay? So up here at the top, and if it helps you, if this is too small, don't forget you can always zoom in. Okay? So up here at the top, we have Venezuela. Venezuela. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take an arrow option and I'm going to draw it right there. Okay? And again, I think I'm going to opt to make my arrow a different color just to make it stand out more. Okay? Next to it, right here, connected to Panama, they used to own that part, is Colombia. Notice the spelling, Colombia, Colombia. And again, I'm going to take my arrow tool. I'm going to draw right here. And I'll alternate red and green just to hopefully make it a little easier to see. I don't like that real light green. Let's try a little bit darker green. There we go. Perfect. The little country over here to the left is Ecuador. Ecuador is most famous for owning the Galapagos Islands. You might have heard of the Galapagos tortoise. And it is where I did my study abroad. So I will often bring up Ecuador as examples for things because it's where I spent 3 months of my life studying Spanish. All right, next to it is Peru. Peru is a pretty decent sized country, and it is where the Incas had their main part of their empire. It is where Machu Picchu is, if you've ever heard of Machu Picchu, which is one of the big Incan ruins that you can go to today. Okay? And this guy, smack dab, actually, no, I'm going to do him later. The skinny, skinny, skinny guy on the side is Chile. Chile. Chile had a big mining accident a handful of years back where 33 miners were miners, as in people going down in mines and bringing up ore, uh, got stuck down in a mine thousands of feet underground, and they really pushed the limits of how they could get these guys back up. And they did end up rescuing all of them, very surprisingly, because it was not looking good at first. So, all right. So we have Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Chile along the left side. The other four, we're going to start with this guy who I started to name earlier. The big guy smack dab in the middle is Bolivia. And again, I am gonna change these just to make them show up a little better. Okay. And again, Bolivia right here. This little guy up, or we'll do the big guy next. This big guy right here is Argentina, probably the most famous one you would be familiar with, Argentina. Notice it's not Argentina if you're saying it in Spanish, Argentina. If you've ever heard the musical Evita, she sings a song called Don't Cry for Me, Argentina. And that is a very famous song associated. They also are famous for the tango. And again, I'm going to just make a colored line here. And then we have these two guys in the middle. This guy up here, these are the two people always mix up. This one is Paraguay. I can spell it. Paraguay. And the little guy down here is Uruguay. Again, the real big one speaks Portuguese, but the little country down there does indeed speak Spanish. And that covers Sudamerica. Good. All right, last but not least, we've got 3 regions on one map. Okay? So, first things first, let's label our regions. Need my text box to come back to me. Okay, so up at the top, and you can do this off of it doesn't have to be on your actual presentation. We've got Norte America, North America. Down here, this middle section, we are going to label as Centro America. Now, some people argue that Centro America is simply part of Norte America. I am going to treat it as a separate region. And last but not least, of course, we have the islands, also known as El Caribe. You probably know them as the Caribbean. they would say El Caribe. Bien? All right. In North America, you have two. The most obvious one is our neighbors to the south, which are Mexico. Mexico. Accent on the E. The X is pronounced like a J. Mexico. Okay? Then, of course, the other big country here is us, is Los Estados Unidos. We say United States, they say States United. Estados Unidos. Now, some people think it's odd, by the way, just so you know. The abbreviation is EEUU, just to mess with you. Why is it doubled? I don't know. I've never gotten a good explanation. It just is. Why do we talk about the Estados Unidos? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, the US does not have an official language. This is for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is we're a nation built on immigration and immigrants, but also we have freedom of speech, and our freedom of speech extends to the way you say things. So there is no official language. Now, there is a de facto official language. Obviously, most of us use English, especially when we're dealing with court documents and such. But many states do provide documentation in other languages because, again, there is no official language. The second thing is the United States is actually the second biggest group of Spanish speaking people, native speakers, anywhere in the world. Mexico is first and Estados Unidos is second. Sometimes it comes in third behind Argentina, but it is pretty big. So it's important to acknowledge that while the US may be thought of as an English speaking country, Spanish speakers make up a very large portion of our group. Okay? And that covers North America. I would, for a test, pick Mexico as my easy one because it's easier to spell for this. Caribe, the Caribe. There are three places you need to know. This guy over here, 90 miles off our shore, most of you have heard of before, Cuba. Cuba. Cuba is easy to spell. Cuba used to be barricade, like blockaded, embargo. You weren't allowed to travel there. That has started to change. It's not 100% now that you can go, but it is easier to get there than before. This island here is divided into two parts. The left part is Haiti. They actually speak French. Haiti often has trouble with hurricanes and things. They are unfortunately on the side of the island that gets hit harder that way. And the other side of the island is República Dominicana, which is the Dominican Republic in English, or the DR, sometimes called. A lot of good baseballers come from La República Dominicana. And then this little island off to the right is Puerto Rico. Now, I'm going to put Puerto Rico in another color. And the reason I am going to do that is because Puerto Rico is not a country. Puerto Rico is a territory, officially known as a free associated state of the United States. It does not currently have statehood privileges, though they did vote for statehood a few years back, and then the world went crazy, so they haven't gone any further with it just yet. But Puerto Rico is considered part of the United States. You can go there without a passport. They can come here without a passport, so on and so forth. But if I'm asking for a country, you can't put down Puerto Rico. I would suggest you pick Cuba as your choice for this one because it's the easiest to spell. And then we have Centro America. And Centro America starts with Guatemala. Guatemala, which is right below Mexico here. And then we have down below here, we have El Salvador. Then we have over here, oh, I'm going to get rid of that. Hold on. You know what? I'm going to have to double check myself because I always want to mix them up. I get Nicaragua and Honduras mixed up on my maps. Honduras is first. So the one here at the top is Honduras, and the one right below him is Nicaragua. Again, I'm going to add some arrows just for clarification purposes. Okay. Then we have Costa Rica, which is probably the most famous of the group. It's where a lot of tourists go. And the other really famous one, of course, is Panama, due to the Panama Canal, which is a bit of a whole thing if you go into history. I'm going to put it over here. Obviously, it's not the one it's on, it's the one that the arrow is pointing to. And Panama, I believe, has an accent on the last A. I could be off on that accent, but I think I have it right. If I were someone picking ones for a test to memorize, Costa Rica would be my first pick, but if you have a connection to one of the countries, obviously that's the smart one to pick. Remember, we will be having a quiz, and what I ask you for the quiz is to name one country from each region. So here your choices are España, España, and you guessed it, España. It's the only country. South America, you got lots of choices. Peru is real easy to spell. Chile is real easy to spell. I'd probably pick Mexico for North America. I'd probably pick Cuba for Caribe, and I'd probably pick Costa Rica for Central America. Now that you've filled in your maps, we're going to take a couple of minutes and look at some vocab. Buena suerte. Adios.